Audie Murphy. The name itself is practically a monument to American heroism. He was the Texas sharecropper's son who became the most decorated soldier of World War II, a man who stared down a German company and lived to tell the tale, and later, a Hollywood movie star. His life was a testament to a kind of courage that feels like it's from another time. We all know the legend. But what if the official story of how that legend died is missing a few critical pages? For more than 50 years, the story of his death has been accepted as a simple, tragic truth: a plane crash in the fog-shrouded mountains of Virginia. A terrible accident. But what if that story, the one neatly filed away, is just a cover? What if the truth is far more sinister? Decades after the crash, a different story began to take shape, one built on whispers, alleged forensic findings that challenge the official report, and the story of a so-called whistleblower who claims the accident was no accident at all. This is the story of America's greatest hero, and the chilling theory that he wasn't a victim of fate, but the target of a meticulous execution, covered up by the very government he served. Is it just a conspiracy theory? Or was Audie Murphy murdered? To understand the shadow that hangs over his death, you have to understand the man. Audie Leon Murphy was born into serious hardship in Hunt County, Texas, on June 20, 1925. He was one of 12 children of poor sharecroppers, and his family knew the constant struggle for survival. His father eventually left them, and when his mother died while he was still a teen, the world landed squarely on his shoulders. He dropped out of school in the 5th grade to pick cotton, so his skill with a rifle wasn't a hobby, it was how he fed his younger siblings. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Murphy tried to enlist. But the Marines, the Navy, and even the Army initially turned him away because he was too small, underweight, and underage. Not one to give up, his older sister helped fudge his birth date on some documents, and he finally got into the U.S. Army in June 1942. He was quiet, baby-faced, and not what you'd picture as a soldier. But underneath, he was made of something else entirely. Sent to Europe, Murphy's trial by fire began with the invasion of Sicily in 1943. It was there, and later in the brutal campaigns across Italy, that his legend started to grow. He wasn't just a good soldier, he was a natural. He moved with an unnerving calm through the absolute chaos of battle, his aim was deadly, and he had an instinct for small unit tactics. Promotions came fast, often because the men in charge were wounded or killed. He even contracted malaria, which would bother him for years, but he always went back to the front. He fought at Anzio, helped liberate Rome, and hit the beaches of southern France. With every battle, his reputation for unbelievable bravery grew. But it was in a frozen forest in eastern France, on January 26, 1945, that Audie Murphy truly became immortal. Near the village of Holzwihr, his unit was torn to shreds, down to just a handful of men facing 6 German tanks and waves of infantry. Murphy ordered his men to fall back while he stayed put, calling in artillery strikes. An American tank destroyer nearby took a direct hit and started burning. In a moment that just defies logic, Murphy climbed onto that burning, explosion-threatened vehicle and took control of its .50 caliber machine gun. For an entire hour, totally exposed to enemy fire from 3 sides, he single-handedly fought off the German assault. Wounded and bleeding, he poured fire into the enemy ranks, killing or wounding an estimated 50 soldiers. He only stopped when he ran out of ammunition. He then walked back to his men, refused medical care, and organized a counterattack that sent the Germans running. When asked why he did it, his answer was simple. They were killing my friends. For that act, he received the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor. By the war's end, he'd earned every combat award for valor the U.S. Army had to offer, plus decorations from France and Belgium. He was, without a doubt, the most decorated American soldier of World War II. He came home a national hero, his face on the cover of Life magazine. The shift from soldier to civilian life was rough, but Hollywood noticed him. He starred in over 40 movies, most famously playing himself in the 1955 classic, To Hell and Back. But the glamour of Hollywood couldn't quiet the demons he brought home. He suffered from what we now call severe PTSD, battling insomnia, depression, and nightmares. He even slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow. He became one of the first celebrities to speak openly about the mental wounds of war, pushing the government to take better care of veterans. His life was also a mess financially. Bad business deals and gambling debts led him to declare bankruptcy in 1968. He was a complicated, troubled hero, fighting a private war long after the one in Europe ended. And it's in that complicated life that the seeds of this dark theory may have been planted. On the morning of May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a private, twin-engine Aero Commander plane in Atlanta, Georgia. He was on a business trip with 5 other men, headed to Martinsville, Virginia. The pilot, Herman Butler, had plenty of flying experience but was not instrument-rated, a critical detail in the official investigation that followed. The weather that day was getting worse. As the plane flew north, it ran into thick clouds, rain, and fog. People on the ground near Galax, Virginia, reported seeing a plane circling, seeming lost in the low clouds. At 11:49 a.m., the pilot radioed the FAA in Roanoke, saying he intended to land there. The controller warned him of the conditions. A low cloud ceiling, visibility of only 3 miles, and, most importantly, that the mountain ridges obscured. That was the last anyone heard from the flight. When the plane never arrived, a search began. For 3 days, rescue crews combed the rugged terrain. Finally, on May 31, they found the wreckage. The Aero Commander had slammed into the side of Brushy Mountain, not far from Roanoke. The impact and fire destroyed the aircraft. There were no survivors. Audie Murphy was dead. Just weeks before his 46th birthday, the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, handled the official investigation. Their final report, filed in 1972, was straightforward. They found no evidence of any pre-impact failure with the plane itself. The engines, controls, and structure were all in working order. The blame was placed entirely on the pilot. The NTSB determined the probable cause was the pilot flying visually into weather conditions that required flying by instruments, at an altitude too low to clear the mountains. In simple terms, the official story is pilot error. A pilot who wasn't certified to fly blind flew into a dense fog, got disoriented, and flew straight into a mountain he couldn't see. It's a tragic, senseless end for a man who survived so much. It's neat, it's logical, and for 50 years, it's been the final word on Audie Murphy's death. Case closed. A horrible accident. But for some, that story has always felt a little too neat. So that's the official story. But this is where it begins to fork, where the whispers and doubts that have lingered for years start to form a full-blown conspiracy theory. For a long time, these doubts were easy to dismiss as just speculation. The official narrative was solid, but time has a way of unsettling things. In the case of Audie Murphy, the cracks in the official story started to appear, fueled by people who felt the explanation was just too convenient. The questions start with the flight itself. Why would a pilot with 8,000 hours of experience make such a catastrophic rookie mistake? Flying into zero visibility in the mountains isn't just risky, it's a death sentence. Then there are the persistent rumors about the crash site. Proponents of a different narrative have long whispered about things that don't add up, pieces of the wreckage that were supposedly never accounted for in the official inventory. Was every piece of that plane found? Or were certain parts that might tell a different story quietly removed before investigators got a good look? These questions, for decades, were just that, questions. They were troubling inconsistencies but lacked any hard evidence to challenge the official record. They were the domain of independent researchers who felt the government closed the book on a national hero's death a little too quickly, and they started asking other uncomfortable questions. Who was Audie Murphy in 1971? He wasn't just a war hero. He was a man with deep connections, a famously short temper, and a refusal to back down from a fight. He was also in deep financial trouble, which can make a person do desperate things, or stumble into dangerous situations. Could he have gotten mixed up in something he shouldn't have? In his business deals, did he cross paths with the wrong people? He was a man who knew dangerous secrets, a man who had become a problem for people who solve problems quietly. The official story of pilot error started to look less like a conclusion and more like a plausible cover story. And what lay underneath was a shocking narrative of sabotage and murder. For decades, any challenge to the NTSB's findings was shut down with one question: where's the proof? Without forensic evidence, the pilot error story stood firm. But according to the theorists, that evidence was there all along. In recent years, a group of independent investigators have claimed to have re-examined fragments from the crash using modern forensic tools. What they say they found is explosive. At the heart of this theory is a forensic re-examination of the plane's control systems. According to this alternative investigation, analysis of small, recovered fragments tells a story that is completely at odds with the official report. The focus is on the plane's control wires, the vital link between the pilot and the plane. The NTSB report concluded these systems were working before impact. But these researchers claim their findings show clear evidence of tampering. They describe wires that appear to have been cut cleanly, not frayed or snapped from the force of a crash. They argue these aren't the marks of an accident, but the marks of deliberate, methodical sabotage. They even allege that control systems were subtly rerouted. Imagine a pilot, flying into a storm, trying to turn right, only for the plane to bank left. In the chaos of zero visibility, he'd blame the weather, the turbulence, his own senses, never realizing the controls themselves had been turned into an instrument of his death. This theory paints a terrifying picture. Sabotaging a plane this way requires a deep understanding of avionics. It's not the work of an amateur, it's the work of a professional who knows how to make a murder look like a misfortune. Proponents of this theory argue this is why the official investigation found no fault with the plane. The NTSB was looking for mechanical failure, not malicious intervention. The weather, they say, wasn't the cause of the crash, it was just the perfect cover. If these unverified claims are true, the wreckage on Brushy Mountain isn't just a tragic accident, it's a crime scene. And that begs the most important question of all: who was the killer? If the plane was sabotaged, who would want Audie Murphy dead, and why? For decades, this was the missing piece of the puzzle for conspiracy theorists. But then, according to the lore of this case, a voice allegedly emerged from the shadows. The story goes that years after the case was closed, a man claiming to be a retired government contractor came forward, burdened by a secret he'd kept for decades. His identity has never been verified by any mainstream source, and his testimony exists in the world of independent journalism and deep state research. But his story, if you believe it, provides the motive. It connects Murphy's death not to a business deal gone wrong, but to the highest levels of U.S. intelligence. According to this alleged whistleblower, Audie Murphy had stumbled upon knowledge of a highly sensitive, covert U.S. intelligence operation. The details are murky, but they supposedly involved illegal activities that were completely hidden from the American public. Murphy, a patriot with a rigid moral code, was deeply disturbed by what he'd learned. He started asking questions, and in doing so, he flagged himself as a massive problem. The testimony alleges that in the months before his death, Murphy was put under surveillance. The powers behind this covert program saw him as a liability. He was America's most beloved soldier, his reputation was untouchable. If he went public, the scandal would be catastrophic. The whistleblower's claim is chillingly simple: the plane crash was a professionally executed hit, designed to look like an accident. It was, in his words, the cleanest way to eliminate a liability. This testimony reframes everything. Murphy's known financial struggles and his sometimes erratic behavior were no longer just signs of PTSD, they were the actions of a man under immense pressure, a man who knew he was in danger. The whistleblower's account provides the missing pieces of the puzzle for the theorists. the who and the why. The who were shadowy figures in the intelligence community. The why was that Audie Murphy, the ultimate hero, had discovered a truth so ugly that, in their eyes, he had become a threat to national security. With the alleged sabotage and the testimony of a supposed whistleblower, the framework of a conspiracy takes shape. But why would anyone take the monumental risk of assassinating Audie Murphy? According to this theory, the answer is a perfect storm of his personal struggles and his unbreakable character. Let's connect the dots. You have Audie Murphy, the hero, struggling with severe PTSD, which made him unpredictable and known for a quick temper. He was not a guy who would quietly back down if he uncovered something he thought was wrong. Then, add his serious financial problems. By 1968, he was bankrupt. From the perspective of a secret organization, a man in financial trouble could be seen as vulnerable and likely to sell what he knew. Or, he could be seen as a man with nothing left to lose, making him even more dangerous. Now, add the central claim of the theory: Murphy had stumbled onto illegal covert operations. This creates the motive. You have a national icon with immense public trust. He is temperamentally incapable of staying quiet about injustice. He is under huge financial pressure. And he possesses a secret that could destroy careers and cause a national security crisis. He is, in short, a ticking time bomb. The theory posits that quiet threats were made, but that Audie Murphy, the same man who stood on a burning tank destroyer, was incapable of backing down. So, the decision was made to silence him for good. The plane crash was the perfect solution. The NTSB report would provide the official explanation. His death would be mourned as a tragedy, and the secret he carried would die with him. This is the unsettling picture the theory presents. That Audie Murphy wasn't killed by pilot error or bad weather. He was killed by his own integrity. His death was the ultimate betrayal, a system turning on its most celebrated son to protect its darkest secrets. The motive wasn't personal, it was a cold, calculated act to silence an inconvenient hero. We've laid out the official, evidence-based story, and the deeply unsettling conspiracy theory that challenges it. We have the established facts of a hero's life and a tragic crash, and then we have the claims of sabotage and secret whistleblowers. What do you make of this theory? Is it a compelling mystery that deserves another look, or is it just speculation built on coincidence and rumor? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to explore more hidden stories, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. In the end, we're left with two very different stories. One is the official account, backed by the NTSB investigation, a story of tragedy, where a hero's life was cut short by bad weather and a fatal piloting error. It's the story that has stood for over 50 years. The other is a story of conspiracy, betrayal, and murder. It's a narrative built from alleged discoveries and secret testimonies that have never been proven in the mainstream. It paints a picture of a man who survived the hell of war only to be silenced by the very system he fought to defend. The official report may have closed the case, but for many, the questions linger. If the most decorated soldier in American history could be eliminated and have his death disguised as an accident, what does that say? Was Audie Murphy's final battle fought not against a foreign enemy, but against the shadows in his own government? The final truth might be lost to the fog on that mountain, but the theory itself reminds us that sometimes, the most persistent mysteries are the ones hidden in plain sight.